Thank you for joining today. I want to welcome everyone to the second informational session for the Service Provider Program and the recently released RFQ. We held our first informational session last Wednesday, but if you couldn't join then, we're happy to have you here today. Both informational sessions will be going over the same material, and we'll be releasing a recording of the session today after it has been completed. My name is Andrew Kringus. I'm the Service Provider Manager, and I'll be the event facilitator for today. So here's today's agenda. We will discuss New York City Accelerator, the Service Provider Program, the RFQ, including submission requirements, the service provider categories we hope to enroll, the criteria for selection, and then we'll move on to participation requirements, our available marketing materials, service provider management support, and key points to take away. Once we're done presenting, we will open up the floor for questions to be asked to us. During today's presentation, everyone will be muted to avoid disruptions. We encourage you to join us on camera if you wish to do so. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a chat box, and you can direct your questions and comments during the presentation here. We are also recording this information and will distribute it once the second session has been completed. And so with that, let's begin. Some background to New York City Accelerator. New York City aims to be carbon neutral by 2050 as a part of one NYC's 2050 strategic plan laid out for the city. Since buildings account for such a significant portion of the city's emissions at 68%, and with 90% of these buildings expected to be here come 2050, the New York City Mayor's Office of Climate Sustainability, or MOCNS, developed New York City Accelerator to assist building owners and operators chart pathways to curb emissions from building sector and to mobilize New York City to accelerate a just transition to carbon neutrality. New York City is committed to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 in a just and equitable way. Since buildings account for over 2/3 of the city's emissions, transitioning the building sector to clean energy is critical to mitigating the worst impacts of climate change and presents an opportunity to drive the associated benefits towards communities that need them the most. Moving on. Going further into detail here, New York City Accelerator is a city-backed program that helps control costs, meet local law compliance, boost building performance, increase energy savings, and reduce carbon emissions across the buildings in New York City. New York City Accelerator helps identify building upgrade projects to help meet emissions limits established under the Climate Mobilization Act, or the CMA. Local law compliance is critical to understand where New York City is headed. With help from existing local laws like Local Law 84 and 87, Local Law 97, the centerpiece of the CMA, places caps on GHG emissions from existing large buildings. This program is here to provide free technical guidance to the market to transform how we operate our buildings and the way that they are built. Launched in spring of 2021, New York City Accelerator provides this free technical guidance for multifamily market rate and affordable rate, commercial and industrial building owners, and operators of privately owned buildings. New York City Accelerator targets buildings that are 25,000 square feet or more, but there's still a specific area of the program that focuses on buildings that are at or over 5,000 square feet, both new and existing. Smaller buildings are generally referred to partner organizations, so don't feel like we're leaving them in the dust here. And we do have specialists dealing with new construction that are partnered with New York City Accelerator. By participating in the program, both existing and new buildings can pursue deep energy measures that enable them to exceed 2030 standards set in Local Law 97 of 2019. Buildings may face fines in 2024 and 2030 if they create more carbon than the threshold established for them by the city. And now with the new law recently passed on setting restrictions on fossil fuel usage in newly constructed residential and commercial buildings, we're at a critical point to continue pursuing these decarbonization strategies within the city. How New York City Accelerator works is people are calling into the program while our account management team is consistently making outreach to their existing portfolios, where we then can connect the key building decision maker here to our vetted list of service providers, all the while remaining vendor agnostic to have the provider then pick up this project and take the next applicable steps. If service providers themselves have projects that they want to bring to New York City Accelerator, we also encourage this. It's a two-way road, and we can help people move their projects forward. It's not just account management dishing off leads to providers. Our account management team is organized with key specialties, including a finance specialist, an account manager dealing mainly with multifamily affordable housing, multifamily market rate, C&I buildings, new construction, and solar. There is no catch or cost to take advantage of the services that this program offers. Overall, New York City Accelerator aims at increasing the program awareness and education uptick for professionals in this industry and aims to facilitate this just transition to carbon neutrality for all. New York City Accelerator doesn't perform installs. Rather, we connect people like service providers on this call today who can do the work. Account managers have the capacity to visit sites, but again, we're not doing the audits. We're identifying and looking for opportunities for the decision makers to act upon. We're not taking away from the existing market or competing with others. We're a free service aimed at touching as many buildings throughout the city. With an ambitious goal of engaging over 6,000 buildings, we want to keep the conversations moving and accommodating for each projects that may come through New York City Accelerator. The Service Provider Program. The role of the Service Provider Program, again, is to actively refer building owners, landlords, facility and property managers to the companies within New York City Accelerator Service Provider Network. Likewise, Accelerator is ready and equipped to handle projects that service providers bring to the program as well. The Service Provider Network will serve as an extension or a force multiplier of the New York City Accelerator outreach team to increase participation within the program. The service providers are the boots on the ground that are making these changes. They're here to help educate and continue to accelerate this market change throughout the city. Service providers hold a critical, crucial, and important role for New York City Accelerator. The Service Provider Program will support job creation, workforce development, economic opportunity, and with a focus on MWBE engagement. And the Accelerator will engage, grow, and support the service provider sector to accelerate the implementation of decarbonization projects. Again, we are not taking away from the existing marketplace. Rather, we are here to help boost support for service providers. We're here to help you, not to compete with you. We encourage you to bring the projects that you're working on now, as well as us dishing off leads to you as well. Benefits to the service provider. So some of the benefits include growing your business. A main key factor here is through the lead generation from New York City Accelerator. Being included on the New York City Accelerator service provider list, which increases your market visibility through this list inclusion on our website. Dedicated account managers who can help service providers navigate local law compliance, financing options, and utility or state incentive programs. Our recognition platform. The service provider recognition platform will highlight the service provider achievements, which I will discuss later on in this presentation. Continuing on here, some more of the benefits that can be had here: expanding skills and growing your team. By leveraging free trainings and marketing materials, your company can enhance your team's skills knowledge about cutting-edge technology and local law compliance. Networking opportunities that can help foster connections within the industry through events and trainings, and with an opportunity to collab with other enrolled providers in the program. And specialists, I mentioned this earlier. Providers gain access to New York City Accelerator specialists, including a financing specialist who can help guide service providers to understand the variety of financing options through their projects, including the New York City Accelerator Property Assessed Clean Energy Option, or PACE. The request for qualification. So as many of you are aware, or if you're not aware, the RFQ was released more than 2 weeks ago on January 11th, 2022. Enrollment will remain open through the program for new providers to have a chance to respond to it. The RFQ shares information about the program, the application requirements, and key participation requirements once selected into the program. You can find the link to the online application form within the RFQ document itself. And I've gotten questions on this previously to this presentation, but on the RFQ, there's a deadline for February 7th, but no need for alarm. That's just the first round of applicant deadline. So we want to encourage enrollment to happen sooner than later, but of course, enrollment will stay open throughout the program. A few requirements listed here include participation in utility or state programs for applicable categories. So what that means, for example, if you're doing lighting retrofit projects, you should be enrolled within a NYSERDA or a Con Edison program, as some of these programs offered through these channels have rebates for lighting retrofit projects. If you have a service category that isn't covered by a state or utility program, then this doesn't apply to you because there aren't rebates offered through these entities. Project references are required, as well as general information from your company concerning previous work done throughout the 5 boroughs, a COI, a certificate of insurance, MWBE certificate, if applicable, alongside other company certifications, and a W-9 form. So the service provider categories. Please note this list isn't exclusive to the services provided here. We have the option to write in if a particular service isn't mentioned. This is our general idea of the firms that we want enlisted in the program based on account manager input and the general outreach already conducted with the service provider community up to this point. So the criteria for selection, alongside participation in existing rebate programs offered through state or utilities mentioned in the other slide, New York City Accelerator will be checking project references from previous work done by the firm. Better Business Bureau checks and background checks will be made to identify any generally negative business activity from the applicant. And once requirements are met from the company and reviewed by the New York City Accelerator team, a final list is generated and submitted to MOCNS for review and acceptance into the program. Participation requirements. Once selected, service providers are required to attend an orientation onboarding training, the first of which will be held at 2 p.m. on Thursday, February 17th, and a second one being on February 18th at 10 a.m. Moving forward from there, monthly onboarding and refresher trainings for any new staff that may join your team will be held every third Tuesday and Wednesday of the month. Now, in terms of projects being submitted through New York City Accelerator, providers must complete at least 1 per year and engage at least 6 as well. Engage with at least 6 projects as well. An engagement with the participant includes reaching out to them either by phone, email, or in person to initiate this decarbonization project. Completing projects means that the service provider has successfully implemented the proposed decarbonization project at the participant's location. Project completion will always be verified by the program. And please remember, the recognition platform that we have will highlight service provider performances. It will highlight the work done from providers regarding the volume of work completed. New York City Accelerator is tracking program performance through Salesforce, and we encourage providers, again, to bring in projects as well as receive them from account management. We want to see people excel through this program and rightfully be acknowledged for the work being done. Continuing here, we ask that providers be responsive and collaborative with New York City Accelerator, with the New York City Accelerator provider manager and the account management team throughout the program. It's important that we hear from you. Service providers are out in the field getting this important work done, so we want to keep these communication channels open when it comes to reporting project statuses. Alongside that, monthly check-ins will be with the service providers will be scheduled and orchestrated with the service provider manager to continue to receive these critical project updates throughout the program. And some optional participation that we offer. New York City Accelerator holds office hours, refresher trainings and onboarding for any new staff members that may join your team throughout the year, offered monthly. The Energy Efficiency Learning Center, or the EELC, our online learning platform, offering technical trainings and or networking events. And finally, the New York City Accelerator Internship Program, which service providers can opt into as well. Marketing materials for selected service providers. Selected providers will be provided with a New York City Accelerator approved logo to be used on items like your company website, your signature email blocks for emails, and business cards. You can see here on the slide what this logo would be. Providers will also have access to all of New York City Accelerator collateral material when operating out in the field, material of which has been developed in different languages should you need it. And we also offer packaged social media posts for providers to share through their online social media platforms, promoting the program and their general progress in it as well. The service provider management support. So the service provider management support can be expected to stay in contact with service providers on a regular basis, checking in on lead referrals and tracking any of your project reporting. The service provider is me again. I'm here to answer any questions service providers may have. I'm available for one-on-one meetings with providers or if requested to join on customer calls for further reassurance. And I will continue to work with the service provider network and account managers to identify potential case studies to be developed by New York City Accelerator Marketing. Some key points to remember as we near wrapping this up. So enrollment, again, will remain open through the program. The service provider list will be updated on a regular basis as new service providers are added throughout the program. February 7th, again, is just a deadline for the first round of applicants, as this is our first batch of applicants for the program. So we want to make sure we are submitting and reviewing them in a thorough process. And again, we want to encourage everyone to apply sooner than later for this deadline. The first two onboarding sessions for service providers will be held on February 17th at 2 p.m. and February 18th at 10 a.m. Monthly onboarding and refresher trainings will be held every third Tuesday and Wednesday of the month. The EELC, the Energy Efficiency Learning Center, our on-demand technical trainings are available for service providers. These monthly check-ins with the service providers will be scheduled and orchestrated to continue to receive project updates throughout the program. And most importantly, we want to stress for you to utilize the service provider manager. We want to hear from you. Service providers have the finger on the pulse of the energy efficiency market in New York City. We want to learn from you as much as you want to learn from New York City Accelerator. We want to know what resources and tools you may need to transform New York City's marketplace. You can help us help you. And so with that, I want to thank everyone that joined today's session and last week's as well, if you're here returning again. Your participation in the service provider program is vital to the acceleration of achieving New York City's decarbonization goals. The service providers always get the work done. And with that, we're going to start opening up the channels here for questions. And as we do so, I can leave my contact information up here. If you don't have it already, feel free to take this down. And all right, that's it.
Andrew, Lisa. I'm Lisa Grayson. I'm the outreach manager for the Accelerator program, and I'm trying to monitor the questions that are coming in through the chat. One of them is regarding our internship program, and one of the participants on the call would like to know a little bit more about that. Do you want to take it, or do you want me to?
Sure. So yeah, we're working with the CUNY city, with CUNY, the CUNY network within New York City to tap into an internship network to offer interns to programs or companies enrolled with New York City Accelerator. Lisa, you may want to jump in because I only know so much.
Sure. So the Accelerator and CUNY have a partnership to place CUNY students in 15-week internships with any organization, company, service provider, that's in the energy efficiency, decarbonization, sustainability field. And the students can range from a whole array of STEM backgrounds to as well as finance, marketing, communications. So really the full gamut. They go through a 35-hour BPL training, so they have a very solid, building systems and energy efficiency basis on top of their regular course of study. We do screenings and then matches and do a match process to get the best match of student and employer. Employers are required to pay the interns, but there are a number of different subsidy programs. The two that are primarily being used as one is a NYSERDA PON and another is the Federal Work Study Program. Both of them pay a majority of the intern expense. So they are definitely worth looking into. So, in essence, you could wind up getting an intern for $5 an hour if you utilize these programs. So it's a great program. The feedback that we've received from employers from the first cohort has been very positive. We also hired an intern. I'm thrilled with her, and we're keeping her on a second semester here. So I highly recommend using it. The deadline for submission of your interest or commitment to participate in the program is the 31st of this month. There is a little bit of wiggle room. And then the internships would start as soon as we can go through the interview, and kind of matching process. So they would run from, the beginning of March through probably mid June, and depending on when they start. And some of the students may be available to continue their internships through the summer if there's an interest on both sides. Any additional questions about the internship program?
If people do have more questions, you can write into the chat, or you can start utilizing if you look at the top of your screen, you can raise your hand and we can, pick on whoever's asking the questions. You can ask everyone and, we'll unmute your mic for the question to be heard. But at this time, I'm going to run through the questions that were written into the chat. The first was Elliot asking if Con Ed, National Grid, CNI, multifamily are part of the accelerator. So they're different entities, right? They're utility-based incentive programs, and with Accelerator, it's kind of two different channels. But we want to leverage their rebates and their, foothold within the city to offer the key decision makers at buildings a cheaper project, right? They're the ones that are offering incentives, and we thought it would be an applicable requirement for people to be enrolled within these programs because it gives a better sense of the respondents' knowledge of the New York City energy efficiency market, right? Because these programs are very complex. It's a very unique place to work in. I'm coming off of, a couple of years of experience working on the Con Ed SMB program, and so I've just seen it firsthand that it's, if you don't quite know how to operate or work these tools or whatnot, it's a great place to start and learn more about energy efficiency throughout the city. So no, it is not a part of the accelerator, but it is a requirement if you are offering a service category applicable to these programs. And if you want to follow with me on the side, we can discuss this further in detail.
Yep.
Kirk,
Andrew, I also took
yeah, sorry.
Mute. So if anybody does want to jump in and needs clarification, please feel free. So.
Okay. Kirk Durham, feel free to shoot me an email. This looks like a much more in-depth conversation that you and I can have. I don't want to take up a lot of the question time here for everyone else. Dragana, we have your question answered about the internship program. Thank you for asking. And Russell, you're asking about water treatment, water management fit in. And yeah, I mean, that definitely can fit in when it comes to domestic water measures and reducing, the amount of energy you're using on the heating side of things, on, whether it's faucet aerators or low flow shower heads for hotels, what have you, for these applicable categories that I've seen being offered through incentive programs and utility programs. As far as water treatment and management, again, you can follow with me on the side and we can discuss this a bit further in depth. David from Dwayne Morris if applicant meets all the requirements, are they automatically within the network? So it's not a guarantee. We still have to hold applicants to a review process and go over the requirements that I mentioned in the presentation. And so, we just want to make sure that everyone's checking off the boxes and the references and everything check out accordingly. Jared, can you share the link for the EELC? Lisa, I don't think that is quite
it will be shared with the selected service provider. So once you're in the program, you will have access to the EELC. It's not publicly available at this time.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Dwayne Morris again, who's making the decisions about whether a provider is qualified. Since we're a law firm, how will the accelerator assess submissions from law firms? This is a great question. Yeah, so again, whether you're offering categories within these incentive programs, right, that are applicable to them, or if you're applying to with categories that are without those incentive-based programs, you're still being held to the same review process, making sure that background checks and project references are adding up, and there's no real issue up front. We do want the law firm services, the legal support added into Accelerator to offer support for decision makers trying to navigate the local law compliance, to dive deeper into any inquiry we may have that would support or would need the legal support to have on deck, ready to be utilized by account management or through the service provider network. Lisa, I know you were mentioning some stuff about the legal support to be added as a service provider. If you want to add some more in, if I'm missing anything.
It is a category that is obviously different from the other service providers on our list, but we have seen a lot of interest and need to have legal resources available. So again, the criteria for selection is going to be slightly different. We're going to want to see, that as we know, Dwayne Morris is already heavily invested in this area. But, what types of projects or compliance assistance or guidance, are you currently involved with? So just providing those examples and how you're helping your clients navigate LL97 or some of the other CMA compliance regulations. And those types of examples, you'd want to maybe include and outline in your offerings description. So again, there are a lot of questions that we're not able to field because they do kind of fall into the legal realm of compliance interpretation and requirements. So there is a need. I don't know if that specifically answered your question, but again, let's see, I'm trying to read your question again. Yeah, so the online directory of service providers, it will be shown online. So we're developing kind of a lookup tool that will list all the service providers. So you'll be able to select from a drop down of topics or service areas and then click into it. Some of them will have subcategories, some of them won't, and then it'll list the providers under that category, and then you can drill into it a bit more for contact information, for services descriptions, things like that.
Okay. In terms of, is Leah Sims asking a question in terms of engagement and completion? I was concerned about projects taking a couple years once initiated, right, from design to completion. So at least the first couple years completion may or may not be possible for someone breaking into the implementation arena. So again, the way we're tracking this progress, right, is making sure that we're engaging and touching down with the buildings that we're interacting with through account management or through the service provider network. And we understand the timelines are definitely lengthy for certain projects. They don't just happen overnight. We all are aware of that. But if we're tracking that initial progress, that initial touchdown with that one building, then we consider that a success. We want to have as much outreach to the building network throughout New York City as possible. And so, as you're engaging with these different buildings, these different decision makers, you name it, we're going to be tracking that, and we're seeing that as successful engagements, right? We're seeing that people are actively going out, getting the conversation started, and trying to undertake more projects as the years go on.
And yeah, and just to add on, I mean, I was just on a call before this one where, we are hearing and seeing that, in this COVID supply chain strained environment, projects are taking a lot longer than they were previously. So we will remain flexible. The important thing for us really is your engagement and communication about the status of the projects, and that you are engaged and that they are moving forward. So there are a number of different metrics that we're tracking and reporting back to the city, and your input there is vital for us to communicate.
Thanks, Lisa. David, I think we may have got this question answered to you, but the online directory for service providers is just showing the basic company information of the services that you're offering, the description that you have for the services that you're taking care of, and if you're holding any certifications, if you're MWBE, we want to hold just the basic surface information of your company to help show, based on the service category, where you lie for any decision makers to come in and say, oh, I need this service X. I'm going to go and look here and see, a couple companies listed, or, what I mean? Like, we're still trying to remain vendor agnostic, but still showing your information in a fair and comprehensible way for anyone that's approaching that list. That list would be online, right? So it's public facing to account management, to the city, to any decision maker coming through and accessing New York City Accelerator. We want to make sure that everyone's information is shared on through that platform. I'm trying to see other questions.
Yes, I'm going to jump on down. We are recording the session, and we will provide the PowerPoint and the recording out as soon as we can. So I don't know if it'll be today, tomorrow, but definitely this week.
Thank you, Lisa. David, you're getting your money's worth today. I'm going to answer another question from you.
I think I got that. Oh, another one.
So it's just the questions that are initially listed on the application. So I guess don't worry about the timing as you go through the application. It's set so that the questions are required, so you can't necessarily go to the next page until the questions are answered. And so, if you want to prep something on the side as you're going through the application, then that's fine. But again, you can take that at your own pace. There's really no time limit on it. Dwayne Morris again, if the building would benefit from multiple providers working together, we do encourage that. We want to make sure that buildings aren't left empty-handed. We want to make sure that, if one provider can't offer all of the services, and, the decision maker sees how impactful and successful the work is, and they want to keep moving to another service or keep the conversation going, then by all means, we're going to encourage more participation and collaboration with the providers that are within the network, and, just continue to keep that project moving and keeping that conversation open, because it seems like that's headed in a good direction if, they want to collab with other providers on that one project.
And again, this is, a benefit of the program is that, we will have ongoing opportunities for training, networking, and, collaboration opportunities, so that you all can get to know each other, your services, for referrals and joint efforts on projects. So absolutely.
It would be great if you could send the Word version out to all interested providers. I guess, Lisa,
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So, and we have it, so we can send it out.
Thanks, Matthew. You can follow up with me on the side for that if this gets lost in the weeds, but I definitely want to follow up with you if that's what you want, and for anyone else on the call as well. I'm trying to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure there are any other questions. Does anyone have their hand up? Let me just see. I don't see any hands up. And feel free to jump in. You don't have to type it in. You can raise your voice instead of your hand.
Yes. Seems like Kinjal, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. They're part of the Accelerator Internship Program, and they're very happy with the interns that came to them last semester. So that's good to hear that this program is beneficial. We love to hear feedback from providers, so thank you for that. Can you remind the next due date? So the due date again, I'm sorry if this is like confusing people, but we want to make sure that by February 7th that we have a solid list of a first round batch of applicants to review and present to MOCNS and really get this first batch up and running. If people, we don't want to keep people waiting, but also we want to move this program forward as it's been recently launched. And so that February 7th is just a soft date for the first round of applicants. Enrollment is open throughout the year, throughout the program. And so don't feel like, you need to rush in to get things done if you're not yet ready. We hope that this informational session has answered a lot of your questions for you to respond to the RFQ. But again, it's on your timeline and whenever you feel ready to respond. So there's no real due date. You're welcome.
And the due date for I know it's a little confusing because we've got these deadlines kind of on top of each other. For the intern program is the 31st if you're interested of January. But again, there's a little wiggle room there too. So, and feel free to reach out to me if you have more intern questions.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, unless you or Natasha see any hands raised. I don't see anything yet.
Any additional questions?
People have my email, and you're always welcome to reach out. If I can't get the answer to you, I'll find someone who can. That's that's what we're trying to accomplish. Okay. Maybe we'll give it another minute or two if people have any last questions, but
yeah, and feel free, obviously, to push this out through other networks. We did try to connect with a lot of the, associated organizations and trade groups and associations to have them promote the RFQ as well as the city. But if you're involved in, trade associations or other types of groups, feel free to share it and encourage other service providers to get involved here. The more the merrier.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we can wrap it up if no one else has any other questions. Again, I do want to thank everyone for taking time out of their schedules to listen to this session. It's always good to see a good response and to see that people are interested in New York City Accelerator. And again, if you have any ongoing questions or you want to get on a call, what have you, my communication channels are always open. You can reach me at the email that's listed on the presentation, and we can take the next steps from there. So I think we can wrap this up.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much for joining.
You'll be seeing communication from this informational session going out within the week or so. The recording, we'll have it live, and it will include the PowerPoint deck on it as well. So thank you. With that, thank you. We'll speak to you guys soon.